This is due, in the main, to my being a member of a predominantly Mormon community at Bridge Park. When I played international sport, I was a non-drinker in the Drinkers Code. I saw alcohol destroy many careers and families. In recent years, my work with community action, youth and drugs has meant I've encountered new stuff like methamphetamine, P, volatile substances, and the new so-called legal highs, and other things that I've never heard of or even considered to be an intoxicant. I've seen the grim consequences of use. I've also seen that if we take a health-centered approach, prevention is increased and recovery assisted. That's the intention of today's seminar. There's been a lot of marching and banging of drums about legal highs, and I think it's time to take a deep breath and to calm down while we really think about the evidence and work towards a way forward to reducing drug-related harm in all its forms. I've mentioned CAYAD, which stands for Community Action, Youth and Drugs. There will be 5 other CAYAD presenters, so I'll briefly explain who we are and what we aim to do. CAYAD, Community Action, Youth and Drugs, is a national project to reduce harm to young people and families from illicit drugs and alcohol. The Ministry of Health funds 20 sites, including cities, towns and rural areas across New Zealand. CAYAD coordinators and communities aim to find innovative and inspiring ways to make a difference for young people and their families. CAYAD coordinators collaborate effectively to meet these challenges. The CAYAD program outcomes are increased informed community discussion and debate about issues related to alcohol and other drugs. Effective policies and practices to reduce alcohol and other drug-related harm adopted. Increased local capacity to support young people in education, employment and recreation. Reduce supply of alcohol and other drugs to young people. CAYAD workers are not counsellors or addiction treatment personnel. Our field of effort is in helping to mobilise communities, foster informed debate, and encourage policies and create environments that are likely to minimise harm with alcohol and other recreational drugs. Our policy efforts are small p focused and concentrate on local issues such as the local alcohol plans and local approved products policies, right through to alcohol and drug policies for sports clubs, schools, Hapu and Marae. Today's event is core business for us. Hawkes Bay CAYAD operates over both cities of Napier and Hastings, serving a population of over 130,000 people. This population features a relatively high proportion of typically high risk CAYAD communities, in that it has twice the average proportion of Māori citizens. Our people are young. We have a higher than average number of youth under 18, neither in education, training or employment. And we have a local economy that focuses on wine, tourism and the good life. Hawkes Bay has a very high rate of the consumption of legal high called alcohol. According to the Joint Alcohol Policy Research Group, nearly a quarter of Hawke's Bay drinkers can be classified as hazardous drinkers. Approximately half of all offending in Napier and Hastings is alcohol fueled. The estimated cost of alcohol-related harm for hospitalisation and injury in Hawke's Bay is around $25 billion per year. We also know that nationally around 1,000 New Zealanders a year die from alcohol-connected factors. Of course, alcohol is sold at every supermarket and bottle stores pepper pot every shopping centre. These, along with dairies and petrol stations, also sell another legal high called tobacco, the psychoactive substance of which is nicotine. About 4,000 New Zealanders a year die from tobacco-related factors. I mention these details to get some perspective on the issue that we are dealing with today. I first became aware of these new legal highs in November 2012. I had an article published in the Hawke's Bay Today predicting the up-and-coming problems with synthetic cannabis. In the nearly 2 years since I've worked alongside community groups in getting a lid on what was then an unregulated market, this included a wonderful team from where I knew, named the Granny Brigade, who picketed local sellers. The number of substances on the market was astounding. If people were adversely affected, it was hard to give them help because no one knew exactly what was in it. The laws of the day were woeful. Well, the laws of the day were woefully insufficient. Something had to be done. I was proud to be part of the Regional Synthetic Cannabis Working Group, which developed into a collaboration between New Zealand Police, Hawke's Bay DHB, Ngāti Kahungunu, and NGOs. We raised awareness, helped a large number of sellers voluntarily withdraw from the market, and made submissions to the 2 city councils on psychoactive substance policies. I was relieved when the Psychoactive Substance Act came into effect, and it's been pleasing to see the number of points of sale decrease dramatically, and the number of products decrease as well. I understand that presentations at emergency departments due to psychoactive substances is also dramatically down. The government's drug strategy has 3 pillars: supply control, demand reduction, and harm minimisation. In the Hawke's Bay, we have been quick off the mark in terms of supply control, but we haven't really been concerned. We haven't put concerted effort on resources into demand reduction or problem limitation. In fact, if anything, we've gone backwards. There's been lots of rhetoric and passion, but the facts have been blurred. For instance, I attended the 2 anti-legal high protests, one in Napier, one in Hastings, held last Saturday. I stood and listened. I heard politicians making impassioned speeches. It's election year after all. But the New Zealand Parliament in a non-election year voted for the new Act, 119 votes to 1, in an almost universal agreement based on the provision of sound evidence. I heard City Councillor, who had previously been a drug squad detective and is now a publican, speak against the supply of legal highs without a trace of irony. I heard a campaigner talk of how There are houses selling synthetic cannabis all over where I live, whilst not taking into account the fact that maybe police harass the people who want to obey the law by purchasing through the one approved points of sale, and therefore perhaps defeat the intentions of the Act. I saw signs called substance banned for sale last year. Dealing in facts is helpful if we want good health. If we want to reduce drug-related harm in our community, sound evidence is essential. I know our mayors are under pressure from shopkeepers and businesses, from business people that live in the inner city, because they don't like being confronted with the sight of people queuing to get their things. But just imagine if supermarkets couldn't sell alcohol, and there was only one bottle store across the two cities. Drug policy is complex. There's no silver bullet or quick fix. I don't like earthquakes or the threat of floods or tsunami. But they are the realities we are faced with, and we need to learn how to best cope with them and get through. I know we all share a common goal for a community free from drug-related harm. I call upon our community leaders, our mayors, our politicians, and our police to show restraint, to stop further stigmatising those who use drugs, other than the ones they use themselves, and to work with the Ministry of Health to create a workable system to deal with social intoxicants.
So this is what we've been involved in Whanganui. We started by submitting on the Psychoactive Substances Act in 2013, based on what we understood that all products would be proven to be low risk before they would be sold in our communities. In our opinion, this interim period hasn't done that. There are still substances on the market that have not gone through a thorough testing regime and have been proven to be low risk. So we've also been involved in community awareness raising activities. We've developed resources that have been given to schools, community organisations about what these substances are, about the legislation, about where they can get help locally in our community. And we've also been involved in organised pickets outside both of the two sellers of psychoactive substances in our community. Both are located on our main street in Whanganui. And we acknowledge that through the legislation, the sales points in our town have dropped from 26 to 2, which we see as reducing the amount of these substances being able to be sold. While we were undertaking some of these pickets and some of this community action, our community were continuing to tell us that not only the users themselves were suffering effects from these substances, but their families as well. So they are telling us that they are not happy with these substances. While we were picketing, we had an incident with one of our local district councillors, Jack Bullock, who was arrested on cannabis charges, which again put our efforts in Whanganui back into the media in relation to psychoactive substances. And there was quite a bit of criticism surrounding it, especially in the case of Jack, as he was seen to be quite hypocritical for protesting legal highs and then being caught on cannabis charges himself. He's personally said that he believes that these substances are worse than cannabis, and we will let him keep his views. But also we have been informed by a number of alcohol and other drugs clinicians in our community that they are unsure of how well these substances match up in terms of cannabis and which one actually is the least causing the least harm. So we've been advocating we've been advocating constantly with our council to get in place an LAPP. And this has been done not only through ourselves but through the iwi relationship between the two Pōpō link and also through the Safe Whanganui setup that we have in Whanganui. Our community is World Health Organisation accredited as a safer community, and as such we have 7 pillars that have alcohol and other drugs as one of the reference groups, of which I sit on as the reference group representative. So we've pushed this through Safer Whanganui. Safer Whanganui has charged our group with helping to develop the LAPP alongside the council officers to be implemented in our community. On last Saturday we also participated in the ban legal substances rally in our community, and we also plan to do submissions once the LAPP is put in place and get a voice of our people by campaigning to get our community to submit as well. So we believe that there is definitely merit in this legislation. We also believe that it hasn't quite done what it said it was going to do yet. We're hoping that when the regulations come in, this is going to be tightened up a lot. But we also believe that not only are the regulations going to have an impact, but that the government also needs to make a really, really decent investment in prevention, early intervention, treatment, education and social marketing campaigns. We believe that naming these highs legal highs gives it a false sense of safety for our young people and for our industries, of which in Whanganui we have a large forestry industry and a large meatworks industry. A lot of our people are now addicted to these substances as they've moved across from smoking marijuana so that they can pass their in-work drug testing. They're now addicted to these substances, and if we try and tell them that they have to get off them, what are we going to do? There's not the support in place for intervention and treatment for these people at present. We also believe that in order for the LAPPs to work in our communities, there needs to be no internet sales. We see this as a really, really bad thing. How is this going to be monitored? How is age going to be proven by purchasers? And is it going to put the onus on third parties who are delivering these substances to prove that these people are of age? We believe that this is a huge risk continuing to have these internet sales, and we'd like to see something done about this really, really quickly. We also believe that if we're going to have a true picture of what's happening with these substances in our community, that there needs to be a real investment into the ongoing research of the long-term effects of these synthetics. Not just what they're doing to our people now, but what they're doing 10 years down the track, and we need to believe that there needs to be local data that is captured so that we as workers on the ground can have a case to say, we need more treatment services here. Or we don't need more treatment services here, we need more early intervention in our schools. We need to have this data to build our case, not just now, but in the future. We have absolutely no understanding of what these substances are going to do 10 or 20 years down the track. We also believe, Peter Dunn was on 7 Sharp on Monday night, and he mentioned Whanganui in our LAPP, and that we were a bit far behind the track. We also believe that our community action and the community action of others around the country has caused the government to take a second look. They have now changed that the LAPPs may be considered by the authority when granting licences. These now must be considered by the authority. This is huge. This gives the LAPP some bones, but it wouldn't have happened if the community hadn't have spoken up. We also believe that the government has also put our local councils in a situation where they are now facing costly litigation from the industry. This isn't acceptable for us, especially in Whanganui. We can't afford that. Our taxpayers don't want to spend money fighting an industry that is selling drugs to our young people. So we would like to have some answers from the government around how they're going to support these councils to carry out these LAPPs. And do we have questions? So a local approved products policy, which is in relation to psychoactive substances. My apologies, Kevin did speak about that in his first presentation. So that's pretty much all from me in Whanganui at this point. And I'm going to hand over to whoever's next in the line. Thank you for taking the time to come along today, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the session.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Anthony Carter. I'm from Wellington City CAYAD, and along with me look after the Wellington City area, and we have 2 other colleagues who, between the 4 of us, look after the Wellington region. We found that our community is very concerned about the effects of psychoactive substances. This has come through a number of information streams. Community members approach us with concerns, that's like parents, teachers, youth, church leaders, etc. Issues around psychoactive substances are recurring in every meeting with stakeholders that we have, so local business network groups, Wellington City Police, safety collaboration groups, Wellington Youth Networkers, networking group, social service providers, etc. We have just conducted a needs analysis, and that comprised of 85 focus group participants plus 77 questionnaire respondents. And youth themselves don't have a positive thing to say about psychoactive substances, which is really a real concern. It was interesting to note that for some quarters of local governments, they believe that the effects of psychoactive substances are not a big problem in Wellington. However, with a bit of convincing and talking to the right people, Wellington City Council is developing and implementing an LABP with our support and input. What is clear is that our community is very passionate and concerned about the effects of psychoactive substances and what's happening on them. What is also clear is that much of the information they are getting and have is not always accurate or fully understood.
Julie mentioned, or for other CAYAD presentations, we'll go a bit further into some educational resources more specifically. So I won't go into that, but just acknowledge that part of our plan would be culturally relevant educational resources as a key component. So with the flow of education, experiences, and communication, we can help develop healthier and safer communities. So just to sum up, Wellington City CAYAD's role will look like supporting community members to voice their opinions at various government levels, developing educational tools in collaboration with key stakeholders for the community, and strengthening community connection, communication, and support.
Good.
Okay. So what my suggestion is similar to what other people said too, is that the CAYAD workforce needs the support of Ministry of Health to ensure that the public are better informed about how the Act works and what its implications are. But we need the conversation to be about more than just providing information. I think we need to find interactive ways to engage the public and then use those opportunities to educate. So yeah, with prohibition, it doesn't stop people accessing substances. 46% of New Zealanders have tried cannabis, so we know that prohibition doesn't prevent people from using things. Prohibition also incorporates a huge financial cost around imprisonment, policing, courts, treatment, probation, etc. Prohibition also prevents people from accessing health services, and it doesn't prevent black market or alternative supplies, including internet supply. So yeah, there's a massive amount of lack of public knowledge, lack of informed leadership, and I think that we have a situation, as Julia described as well, where the cart is somewhat before the horse. We've got this act in position, but the substances that are currently for sale haven't been through the testing regime, and that's created quite a lot of public confusion and panic, understandably. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of an insight into what came through from the survey that I did. We actually got just over 175 responses in the end. So a lot of people said that they wanted to cap the number of unlicensed retail outlets, but there's some potential problems with that, including things like the sellers that maybe have the licences perhaps might be less responsible than other people. That also that they might be creating a monopoly, and I don't know, I think that stuff needs debating around people having licences or not. There was, throughout the survey, a general, quite strong lack of support for anything smokable, although a few people did say, well, what about legalising cannabis? Cannabis is also a psychoactive substance which is smokable, so there needs to be the conversation more than just the which are currently approved.
And if the minister hasn't got the guts to do it, then let the councils do it, and we will do it. We'll shut them down. I was in Napier yesterday morning. There was characters, I'll call them, outside the shop, spitting all over the footpaths. We've had situations where our tourists have been abused, spat at. Our tourist bus went past there recently, and there were people on it, and they were spat at, by these people standing around. The retailers in the block have been intimidated. On one morning, the furniture salesman a couple of doors along had to lock himself in his shop because he was intimidated. These people came into his shop. Is that what we want in our society? And it's all right talking about all the good work you people are doing, and I congratulate you for it, because we will never, ever get rid of this product totally. But we must make it illegal to sell. Otherwise, we're telling our young people that this is a legal high. It's much better than indulging in a non-legal high. So you use the legal high. Look, we must stop that. We must say to them that this is illegal to sell, so that more and more of our people are not being ruined. And I see it every single day of people wandering around our inner city, and they're absolutely stoned. It's ruining their lives. So my call is to the Minister to stop telling everybody it's other people's problem. It's your problem, Minister. Grow some backbone and do something about it. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Can I just acknowledge those that have put this together, Dennis and Mike? It's a great concept, and we do need to discuss it, even if you don't agree with what I'm about to say. And can I acknowledge Mayor of Napier Bill Dalton and the Honourable Peter Dunn, if he's listening. Look, I just want to be clear from the outset. If I had my way, I would ban this stuff. I don't see any need for it in our society, and you might consider me hardline, but that's my view. However, the government has passed by 119 to 1 a piece of legislation, and that's what most of us, including local authorities and the Ministry of Health, are acting on. But I do find it a complete oxymoron to call something a legal high when we know what it's doing, and actually the publicity around it has actually worked against what many of you people are trying to do, because people think it's now legal to go and buy something that they can get high on. And my problem actually is I, to this day, have had no assurance from anybody that the stuff is safe, has had no long-term effects, etc., because it hasn't been properly tested. So the commentary that was put up there about the cart before the horse, I think, is absolutely correct. If I had my way again, I would have banned the whole lot, had it introduced after it had been properly tested and everybody thought it was relatively safe. But what we've ended up doing is a transitional arrangement, and in the meantime, what has happened is public opinion has seen what these shops are. Public opinion has seen the number and the types of people that are lining up to buy this product. Public opinion doesn't like it. And Bill and I and our councillors have ended up in a space of being asked by our communities to ban this product effectively. That's what's happened. Now, I want to make a couple of comments. The local approved products policy, I think that's what it's called, that actually, for all intents and purposes, is to give local communities an opportunity to have some say on some limited things. Location, density, and actually not much else until now. Although I am hearing from Ministry of Health officials that things like hours of operation, size of product packaging, taxation and things are now starting to be considered. But we actually only have limited powers, and in Hastings we have effectively shut one down because it's too close to a place of worship, shut a second one down because the second one too close to the first one. That's effectively what's happened. Everybody's gone from Hastings over to the shop at Napier. Our process is subject to appeal now. If we lose that appeal, or those appeals, which we believe we did properly, then we're straight back at square one. Since it's happened in Hastings, people actually think we've done a wonderful job, we've got rid of the problem. That's what in mind, but all I've done is actually effectively bring it over to Bill and his crew. The first thing that people see in a community is when councils trying to deal with an issue try to form their LAPPs. So the ones that have gone first Hamilton, Napier, Hastings, Tasman, we're the ones that are in the gun, you know, legally being challenged by the owners and suppliers of this product. As I understand it, by the middle of this year, the government will have developed the regulations around the safety, the manufacturing, that side of things, and then they will have finalised the regulations for local government, the LAPP stuff, by February or March of next year. But in the meantime, we occupy this space. And in the meantime, we have the ability to change some of the government thinking around the regulations, particularly in the supply and manufacturing side, particularly around taxation, size of products. And secondly, when we get to the next phase, around what local authorities can and can't do. So I don't want to say a lot more other than local government is getting a bit of a caning from their communities in this space. All we're doing is acting in a way in which the law allows to the best of our ability, and some of that is about to be challenged, is being challenged. Actually, it is a government policy, it is a Ministry of Health activity. All we are effectively allowed to do is control where and the density and maybe the hours of operation. But in closing, can I say this? Despite what everybody says, every single government agency I talk to, whether it's the police, whether it's the DHB, whether it's SIPS, who I talked to last week, said this issue, this product, these products have now become a major issue in their daily lives and whatever activity they're doing. So that's all I wish to say. Thank you for the opportunity.
Good morning, everybody. Can I acknowledge all of the dignitaries who are present and the other community and related workers who have given up their time to be part of this issue today. I apologise if this sounds a little disjointed because in the picture that I'm seeing, you all look a little disjointed to me, so I imagine I'm coming across in a similar vein to you. But I do want to say this at the beginning. The one thing that brings us all together is a common concern about the impact that these substances are having on our communities. And the debate is not about whether they are good or bad. We know that they are bad, we know that they are harmful. The debate is about the best way to deal with these issues. All of us would like to see them gone. But the reality is this is an international problem. The various solutions that seem easy to implement are simply not workable, and we know that from around the world. We end up driving the product underground and intensifying the problems. So we have to work together as a community to develop responses that meet a couple of criteria: the needs of individual communities, and also give a sense of rationality in terms of what we're doing across the spectrum. I know there's a lot of heat in the argument at the moment. I know there's a lot of intense feeling. I understand that. And I'm as committed as anyone to making this work, because I know the consequences to individuals, to families and to communities if we do not. So I'm looking forward to the discussions you're going to have today. I'm looking forward to the input and the feedback, but I just want to reassure you that from my perspective, from the government's perspective, we are as committed as ever to dealing with this problem. This has been around in New Zealand for some years. You may recall 3-4 years ago, we were beginning to grapple with the chronics and the K2s, and we introduced bans. And the more bans we introduced, the more products came on the market, and we kept on banning, and the products kept coming on the market. So this is not some new phenomenon. This is not some bright idea that we've had to simply flood the market with anything. This is about controlling the market. We've got 95% less outlets than we had a year ago. We've got 2/3 less product around than we had a year ago. And the numbers are only going to go down from here. But we need to work constructively, and we need to work positively together. And I acknowledge the respective contributions of all of you in that regard. So thank you for coming. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person today. That would have been much better, but it simply wasn't feasible or practical at this time. Now I think my next role is to introduce the people who are running this Ministry of Health, the regulator And I'll introduce Dr. Donald Hanna, who's sitting to my immediate right. You can't see him at the moment, but we're going to play an elegant game of musical chairs, and he will introduce some colleagues that are with him, and then I imagine the session takes its direction from there. But thank you again for your participation and your involvement, and I want to just leave you with this message. I am as committed as anybody in making sure we get workable, viable, credible, lasting solutions to this issue. So thank you again for your time. And now I'm going to move sideways, and I think Donald Hanna is going to come into my seat and take things over from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I hope that was elegant musical chairs, Minister. Good morning. I have some other colleagues who we can call on to talk to if we need to ask for some information. I thought just for a moment or two I'd talk about some of the detail that we've got going on, and then, if it's possible and if the system works all right, invite some comment and some interchange and interaction to try and help clarify some things. I think the first thing to talk about is the psychoactive substances regulatory regime at the moment is still in a transitional phase. Every permission, whether it be a product approval or a license to manufacture, a license to wholesale, a license to retail, is an interim license. And they will interim until such time as the full regulatory regime comes in to account. We have finished our consultation on that regulatory regime that closed last month. We are working through taking to Cabinet the proposals for the full regime as we speak. The product approval processes are due to be with Cabinet or the other machinery of government permitting within the next 2 months. The outcome of that is that the products that people are accessing will have a greater level of assurance that they are of low risk of harm. That's low risk of harm from effects physically, and also we're looking at the dependency, the psychological, psychotic capacity of those products, and to work our way through those assessments. We have an expert advisory committee which has many people by the name of Professor this and Professor that on it. I can go through that in detail if anyone's interested, where we're going to do that assessment. The other side of the access of the regime is that if there are products which we have can be satisfied with low risk of harm, that there is properly controlled access to those products. And that's already been seen with a lot of what's happening with the licensing. As the Minister said, we have reduced massively the number of licenses, the number of outlets that there previously were. We don't know how many dairies and stores were selling them previously in the country. We estimate somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000. There's now, at the moment, actively selling, because of some suspensions in some other places, somewhere in about 145 outlets. And one of the consequences of that is a massive concentration effect. When there were 3,000 or 4,000, people were popping out, getting their stuff, and nobody really noticed. Now that there's a few hundred of these, just 100 and something of these things, the number of people going into each of these ones is much greater. There's all sorts of other activities happening on the streets outside, and there's a much greater visibility of this activity that's going on, which is leading to many of the community responses that we're seeing around about the country at the moment. So that's a consequence of closing down both the total number of products and the total number of outlets for them. We're also seeing a lot of stories coming in where there are people with long-term dependencies, some pretty sad outcomes and effects from these things. Without being adamant, we have a pretty strong impression that a number of these are legacy issues resulting from people who were with those really naughty products, those very strong synthetic cannabinoids, which went by the name of K2 and kryptonite, and some of them we would want to actually pronounce their brand names because they're very naughty words that they use. And those products don't have interim approval. If there are any of them out there, they are illegal products that are out there. There's no doubt that some of the people who get their highs find that the high they get from those illegal products is actually more intense than the high they get from the things with current approvals. That's a consequence of the regime, and it leads to some perversities in society. What we do want to do, though, is move beyond the current suite of interim approvals and get the full preclinical, clinical assessments, including the psychological and dependency issues, properly assessed by experts over the regime of the next, when the regulations come in. Alongside that, reporting what is happening out there to us is a very important part of the regime. We look for your help in this. When the regime started, it was a very data-poor regime. There were a few anecdotes. We had a little bit of information from the mental health services and the dependency services, but it was scattergun, it was incomplete. We didn't know what was going on. What we are really looking for is the evidence that comes from the treatment sector of what are the effects that are happening from these products. What are the products that are causing these effects? Have people got dependencies that were initially triggered by those strong, now no longer approved products, and their dependencies being maintained by the weaker stuff? We just don't know what all of those things are, and every bit of information that you can help to provide that is really valuable as we move forward to make this regime actually try and deal with this problem that the Minister was talking about. To report, we've put out to as many places as we can, and I'll just do the advertisement again. There is reporting at the moment to the Pharmacovigilance Centre, which has another part, the Centre for Adverse Reaction Monitoring. We would really encourage professionals to be reporting this stuff, these effects, as frequently as you can get the time to do it, because that is what will help us come to the front end, the pressure end of the system, to try and take the products which are causing these problems out of the market. So that's sort of a bit of an overview of where the regulatory process is at the moment, and I'm not sure how you want to handle this. We're happy to take questions, we're happy to respond, engage with you as best we can. So
the message out that CALM is the contact person, contact appropriate for mentioning adverse reactions. In my communities, I'm finding that people just don't know where to go to report an adverse reaction. They're all contacting the psychoactive substances helpline. That's not appropriate. those that are answering that line, they're not trained. They'll put you on hold for 15 minutes, they'll talk to their manager, then they'll tell you to contact the National Poison Centre, who then don't know what to do. And then if you do end up getting hold of CALM, the process is also not friendly for community people. It's really set up for doctors, so they'll want to fax you a form or get you to complete the form online, and that form is set up for doctors, so it asks for patient information, dose response, and name of medicine. So this is not really set up for the community to be talking about an adverse reaction, and we are still coming across very strong adverse reactions. I'm talking like stroke-like symptoms to products that are currently approved.
Yeah, everything we can do, we are continually looking for every way we can to get the, connect the right people with the right reporting regimes. And we'll take down, we've got a note, we're scribbling away, taking that stuff down. I really appreciate that it's not always easy to get the full amount of information that CALM would want, but CALM are also trying to measure this from a clinical assessment perspective, so they do need sufficient to enable them to do that. But we will, if we can further up our regimes for communicating this stuff, the mechanisms for getting this stuff out there, and maybe as a follow-up to this seminar, we will get to all of the participants the process lined up so that you can use it.
My question is, the Minister said that prohibition doesn't work because the drugs go underground. How about the hundreds of houses around our communities that are selling synthetics after hours? It's called after hours shops, and they're selling through the internet. How are the police going to deal with all those? The drugs are already gone underground, so that argument goes out the window. And also, why have they introduced the psychoactive substances when they don't know what the effects of? You're telling people to bring their CALM, but they don't know you don't know what the effects are. You don't know what's happening to these people. So you've introduced these drugs, and Peter Dunn was talking about the debate about it being bad. He knows it kills. He knows it's killing people. So why are we going backwards? And he introduced this law, and we don't know the effects. We're the guinea pigs, we're the research, we're the first country in the world that's introduced Psychoactive Substances Act. We are the research, because you guys, who are the professionals, don't know what's happening in our communities to our people. You don't know all the people that are burying their children. Is that right? Is that what this country is about? I'm for banning, I'm for prohibition, and the bullshit we've been getting fed is just a whole lot of crap.
That's turning into a political speech, but,
anyway,
there are some questions in that's enough time. There are some questions in that about the process of classification. How quickly is that going to happen?
Sorry, I didn't catch that last question.
The process of classifying these various substances, how far into it are you?
Yeah. Over the next couple of months, I just can't predict how fast we can get regulations made. Wellington can be a funny place when it comes to that. But coming back to your point about why don't we just ban them, even when we did have an effective ban of all of these things, new substances were coming on, but being produced by this, I don't know, it's not a market, I don't know what you call it, an industry or sector or something, because there's always a demand for these substances. It doesn't matter what the substances are, it always is. We've banned a humongous number of substances under the Misuse of Drugs Act, and yet there's still illegal activity going on. One of the things that we are actually starting to see, and I'd love to be able to have firmer information around this, is that a lot of the troubles that are happening out in communities at the moment, in a social sense, are happening because the tinny houses are losing business to the so-called legal highs market. And the tinny houses are reacting by trying to close the legal highs down. Now, that's a dynamic we find very difficult to manage, but it is what's happening. And if we can get to a into the game that causes problems, then it has to go further ahead in a way, taking this stuff forward.
Okay.
So I'm going to talk on this particular matter.
Okay, could we just keep a bit of order here? There's a lot of noise. We've got a policeman here.
Yeah, morning, Nigel.
You're under arrest.
I haven't come down at the stage. Move back. Stand back to move. Nigel, can you see me? Nigel Hurley from Hawkes Bay here. I met you last year when I went down there. Look, myself and many of the people in this room have put through recommendations about the regulations. The last speaker has touched on something I want to really stress with you, is we need to have a very clear definition in the regulations of retail and wholesale. And the reason I say that is because I'm the community sergeant for Napier and have been running this in Hawkes Bay for the last 12 months. These illegal sales are one of our priority areas for this year, and we're very active on this at the moment. But currently there are people going into the legal store and buying this in bulk. I personally believe that there needs to be a very clear definition, and to me, retail is 4 or less packets to an individual in a day. We have people buying several $1,000s worth of this product in a day and selling it at home at night. And I think that is a priority. I've put for about 7 or 8 recommendations myself. Our working group in Hawkes Bay here has been very successful, and we've done much of the same. And I just want to highlight that to you, Doctor.
Thanks for that. We've heard that message very strongly, and a proposal in the regulations is to limit the amount that any single transaction is allowed to buy, so that those bulk sales that you're talking about can't happen legally in the way that you've just described. And when, I think you know, thank you for your comments, that the police are really trying to pick up on the illegalities. People selling to under 18-year-olds, the underage thing. If you're aware of that happening, go and tell the local police and your district health, public health enforcement officers, because that is just illegal activity. The regime will only be as good as we can get compliance with it. So we heard that message through the submissions. Thank you for all of you for putting that in. Our proposal is to limit it. We've been challenged by the policy people. Why should we limit something? We're doing it because we're saying it's a public health measure to limit it, and that's what we're trying to do. So we really think that type of feedback is important for us to try and get a better functioning regime as we develop it further.
Okay, next question.
Thank
Straight
you,
into
Mark. A point that hasn't come up so far, I sort of head it politically, and I'm asking, what is the health income cost difference between banning this stuff or letting this run while this regulatory regime is in transition? I'm just looking at how much of all this is governed by Health Department spend, Ministry of Health spend. Thank you.
I hope I've understood the question right down the crackly line. I think the first thing is that unless a product has an approval, even an interim approval, it is banned. So it's not that we have an open slough of the market, it is banned. But you had a question about amounts of money, was it?
I'm talking about health outcome cost.
Okay.
Long term.
The health outcome costs,
that
yeah.
it's costing the Ministry of Health.
I don't think we can quantify it in terms of exact dollars and cents. What we do know is that there are a large number of people who are presenting through emergency departments and through the acute mental health services with a range of effects, psychotic episodes which are quite intense, have quite long durations. Some of them have been taking up to 6 months or more for recovery out of those episodes. You'll probably know that better than we actually do. What we've even seen in the 8 months that we've been running this, there is always some exceptions to this, that we are seeing reports of reduced numbers of presentations to acute mental health services. We are seeing reduced intensity of psychotic episodes, and they are of reduced duration. And we think that's because the potency of these products is much lower than the previous unregulated stuff that was out there. And if we could fully quantify that, that would be really helpful. But we came from a very data-poor starting point on this. I can't give you the full dollars and cents, but the more that we can get reports which tell us what is happening, particularly in that mental health space, the more we can try and work on and work with you on getting a regime that will actually overcome the problems that we've been seeing. I don't know if that helps. Is that close to what you're asking?
Thank you very much.
We've got time for one more question. We've got a question here that's been handed in, but I think it's unanswerable. The question is, could we embargo them all until the regulations go through? But I think you've answered that with your comments about prohibition. So, any other questions? One more coming.
Okay, well, very much for your time. I hope this has been a help to you, and really hope that collectively make a difference in society.
Just got one more, sorry.
Okay.
One more. My name's Rosemary Marriott. I'm the chair of the Smoke Free Coalition, and we are very concerned about mulling and spinning, where ordinary cannabis and illegal highs are being mixed in with not only roll-your-owns, but people are pulling out some tobacco from tailor-mades and putting the legal highs in. And what is concerning us is that this is largely going unnoticed in the community, that people are driving stoned because of smoking these mixed with tobacco, and this is a reason why the Smoke Free Coalition is also getting actively involved in the legal high situation as well.
Sure. Do you want to
Thanks, and that's a really important piece of commentary. We are very aware that the psychoactive substances have actually changed over the years from the ecstasy and the BPZs and that sort of stuff, which were the pill types of things, to these smokable products.
Yes.
And there are quite a lot of concern about them being in a smokable form.
Yes.
And the herb that's mainly used as the tobacco substitute in this is this Damiana stuff that comes from Central America or somewhere there. We just don't have a real solid understanding of what are the effects on the body from smoking, and particularly maybe chronic smoking of this particular stuff. We know what the effects are from tobacco smoking and all those things, but this is introducing a new smokable product which we don't have an understanding of those effects. So one of the things we asked in our regulatory consultation, what form should these be in? and we are looking to try and get a much better assessment of that. The driving issue is a problem which is across not just legal highs, it's across illegal substances, across the alcohol thing, it's across the whole regime. The evidential testing for these things is something that we recognise has to be further developed. Whether we'll be able to get the swab stick things going for the range of things we've got, that's a piece of work that we're exploring and working with the police on understanding how we can better do that. It is a problem. How to stop it is the thing we need to do. We need to educate the people who do use them, don't drive. But we all know how much education how difficult it is for that in the alcohol space. We don't expect this to be any easier. But whether it's legal or illegal, that's still going to happen. We're trying to come up with the approved product which will minimise the effects of that.
Thank you.
Okay, well look, can we thank the Wellington Health official? Thank you very much, and we'll go to Ross Bell, who's next on the agenda.
I just want to start by acknowledging all those people in this room who have either themselves or within their families struggled with these substances, with alcohol and with illegal drugs. It's never easy. I acknowledge the woman, I'm sorry I forget your name, at the back who's been leading some of the protests around that, some of the community action around this. It's been quite powerful. Mayor Bill Dalton and Lawrence Yule, we were on the radio together the other day. It's good to face to a name. We won't do any name calling here. One there. And also to Dennis and Kevin for putting this event on. I think it's a huge congratulations. I have to echo all of the comments. It's worth echoing all of the comments that people have made around the huge information gap. I think there's been a massive communications failure from government around this law change. And I think in communities as well, I think local government has been caught out. There's a reason for that.
What is your position, sorry?
Oh, sorry, my name's Ross Bell. I'm the Executive Director of a charitable organisation called the New Zealand Drug Foundation. We're Wellington based. A lot of our job actually is around communicating and providing information around drugs, and by drugs we include tobacco, alcohol, these legal ones and all the illegal ones. We're a big fan of the new law, and we've been dealing with these issues for over 10 years. I know some people have talked about these drugs being only on the market for a couple of years. These drugs have been on the market for over a decade, and they've caused huge challenges for us and for government for a long time. And they're presenting a new challenge. In the old days, you create a drug called heroin, say, and it would be around for decades, and there'd be no other new drug. But with these things, you get a new substance, you've got clever chemists, and they can cook these things up very quickly. And so I think what we have with these substances is a new and unique challenge, and we've all grappled with that. We're grappling with the fact that in the internet age, we can share recipes for these products very quickly. We can buy drugs online from China in bulk, and we can trade them amongst friends over the internet. Actually, as an aside, the very first product ever traded on the internet, which is now 25 years old, was cannabis. We've got chemists who are very clever, who are able to cook up these substances very quickly, who are able to tinker with those chemical structures when previous ones get banned. And it's very hard to keep up with that cat and mouse game. one of the unintended consequences of the bans that we've seen is you take one product off the shelf that you're just beginning to find out about, you're just beginning to get an understanding of. We remove that from the shelf and the product gets replaced with 4 or 5 or 20 other more harmful products. And we've seen that in New Zealand with the escalation of much more harmful synthetic cannabis products. Next year, New Zealand commiserates 40 years of the Misuse of Drugs Act. So one of the huge challenges we have is the piece of law that is meant to be helping us to control the harmful drugs is almost 4 decades old, clearly designed at a time when these products weren't around. So we have very old legislation trying to deal with a very new issue, which is why we're a very big fan of the new law. All of the things that people are calling for, and the main one being the ban of these products, we have tried. We have tried for 10 years with these bans. And we take great comfort in relying on bans to fix this very complex issue. We take great comfort, but we have no success. It's the proverbial hammer, turning everything into a nail that needs to be hit. The reason we're a big fan of this law is that it requires a new approach, that it requires all people to have a role. It's no longer just the police officer's role to deal with this problem. It's everyone's role. So we have central government. They have responsibilities. They have passed a law. That law was very slow in coming. As I said, this problem's been around for a decade. So central government has had responsibilities, and they have done part of their job. I think they've been quite remiss in not getting the regulations, which I think will make the law much more powerful, passed at the same time that the law was. I think not only has there been a communications failure, there's been, Donald described it as, odd things happen in Wellington. I think that's a poor excuse. We have health agencies now having a role. Kevin, when he introduced us, he said this is a health-centred approach. And so we now have responsibilities for health workers, for CAYAD workers, for people in the DHBs, for people in treatment. They all have a role in this now. Enforcement has a role, an important role. And you would have seen some of the coverage of the Christchurch protest, and there was a story of a young man, a teenager, I think 17 years, who was spitting blood because of this product. And one of the shopkeepers felt so sad for his addiction that he was giving the drugs away for free. Where are the police? That is illegal. A, you can't give away the products for free, and you can't give them to someone under the age of 18. So that was a clear role for enforcement. So I hope your Christchurch colleagues might pay some of those shops a visit who are in clear breach of the law. Industry, bless them, has a role in this new law now. They have to come up with products. They have to come up with about $2 million. They have to come up with products that will go through a testing regime and come out the other end as low risk. So they have a role. They have a role also to train their retailers. One of the good things about this law is that retail staff, there'll be a code of conduct for retail staff. 1 minute. And local government has a role. It was a role that we weren't expecting. The Select Committee threw very weak provisions into the law at the last minute. I think local government should have a role, but I think that role needs to be improved. I want to touch very quickly on the global, the global fronts. I know Mayor Dalton has talked about other countries in the world have tried to have bans and have fixed the problem. I think we get a false sense of security from those international countries. All of those countries, Australia, the UK mainly, privately, a few weeks ago at a United Nations meeting, were very keenly interested in the New Zealand model because their blanket bans aren't working and they know it. And I want to, actually 2 quick points because I know I've got 2 minutes to go. One of the things, people had a wish list of what they want to see in the new law. One of the things that we desperately want to see is a tax on these products. just like we have with tobacco and alcohol, and that tax to be driven back into to a health-centred approach to prevention, education, and to help enforcement. And a final note, our drug law is 40 years old, and it is under review right now. Kevin compiled this, he convened this meeting to bring calm to this issue. And as this country very soon begins a debate around how we deal with all drugs through the Misuse of Drugs Act review, I would also call for calm. This is a too politicised area. I've been quite saddened at the name calling. Mayors name calling ministers and ministers name calling mayors, and I think it's undignified. And I think because we all have a role now under this new law, we all have a role to debate and discuss and come up with modern drug law, that we need calm, we need evidence, and we need to be working together on this.
There's nothing calm about people's tits, guys.
I absolutely appreciate all of that. I absolutely appreciate all of that. And I think we all have a role in all of that. There is no calm in chaos and families, absolutely. And hopefully if people who are in trouble can be given the help they need from the great services of the Bridge program, from the Salvation Army, or whatever other services are in your community, then hopefully calm will come to those families. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Ross. Thank you, Ross. I don't need to introduce. No, here we come one.
Ngāti pārau, kara mai mihi mawhakatanga. Tēnei te mea kia koutou o koutou o ngāti kūruru, tēnei kaupapa. Kara mai. My name is Ngahi Timon, I'm the chairman of Ngāti Kahuru Iwi, and I'm afraid I'm not going to be much help in this debate because I see the Psychoactive Substance Act as a whānau terrorism act that will see the effects on farmers, and the discussions we've had this morning is at another plane on another level. And so immediate reaction was to say, well, let's stop it, let's stop the bus, and let's have a more forensic look at it. Because if it was any other sort of impact on whānau, we'd be dealing with boots and all. We saw the raids on Tūhoi because they thought Tūhoi were going to shoot up the Uruwera forest. But here we have substance, we have kaupapa here that's shooting up whānau. And everybody's saying, well, let's be calm, and let's be cool, let's see how many whānau die and how they die, let's analyse let's do autopsies and post-mortems, and in time we'll find out whether it's good or bad and whether we can match it with anecdotal evidence. Well, that's not good enough for whānau that are suffering out there today. And we do need to, we're racing at 100 miles an hour, and we do need to have a good look at it. But it doesn't mean to say we do nothing until we get forensic evidence. When Captain Cook arrived here in 1869, Joseph Banks, the doctor, he said that Māori here had no useful physicians because everything they could have, all their needs were met. There were two kinds of mate. There was mate atua, where you afflicted emotionally, or you broke tapu, where you broke muli, and there was mate tangata, that you had some physical ailing. Now, back then, it was said there were three ways to die: by warfare, by accident, and by old age. 1,000 years later, there's 1,000 ways to die, and it's increasing and it's increasing. So we're just going to get hold of it and take it back to where we were, wahine pirotu, tāne pirotu. That's what the outcome we want for all our whānau, that we achieve the best as we can for our children, and that they grow to be the most attractive men and women that society could ever see. But here we seem to be saying, well, let them deteriorate and let's see how we can bring them back. I'm not just talking about this psychoactive drugs and so on, I'm talking about a whole lot of things. So I'm not going to compare this drug is better than that drug, or caffeine is worse than alcohol and so on and so forth. But we need to have a wider angle lens on that but we don't need to fuel the train that's going to be runaway, and we're going to accept certain amount of people going to die every year because of the impact and the effects of psychoactive substances, legal highs, whatever you want to call them. So as I said, I'm not going to be too helpful to this debate because from an EU point of view, we see this finite terrorism. And we'll be working alongside agencies and all NGOs, community, and at legislative level to see we can apply ourselves to ensure that our whānau is safe. So without further ado, kia koutou mai, kai hautu, Mayor Bill and all of you people who are here concerned because e hara takitoa he tō takitari that we shouldn't be working as individuals. He tō takitiri takitoa that we should be working as one. But the whānau is the point of it. Not legislation, not political convenience or anything like that. So kia kaha, kia au, tēnā tata kata.
Okay, well, I'm supposed to give a conclusion here, but I think it was valuable. I think it was worth doing. Can I tell you, I was involved in politics from 1978 until 5 or 6 years ago. And can I tell you the one thing that is not going to happen with absolute certainty? The Psychoactive Substances Act is not going to be repealed this year. It passed 119 to 1 last year. Now, if you put that in the context of what is not going to happen, you've then got to deduce what you should do. And I think the advice that Ross Bell and the Health Department official Donald gave you was that there is the room to improve the situation and to make what many of you perceive quite correctly to be a bad deal a better one. Now that would be my advice. Call upon our final prayer. Thank you very much for coming. I certainly learned a hell of a lot.
Kia ora tātou. It falls upon me to start the closure process for Ngāti Pāro, the hapu from here. There are many great discussions being held here at Otago. And thank you for everyone that attended today. To our mayors, it's important that we get this dialogue rolling, and like Mike, I've found this really helpful as well. I'd like to commend the young people that you see here from AWA, the AWA Transmedia Studio, which is a collaboration between the EIT Ideas School and Ngāti Pāro across at Waioheke. AWA stands for Aroha, Whānau, Aroha love, Whānau, family, and Awhinatanga, which we translate as being community support. And I think that hits Nahiwi's point absolutely, that if we work outwards from whānau, then we'll come right. And on that basis, Mātua, would you close us with a prayer for today, please?
This is not so much a karakia, but a tohi. And a tohi is a ritual that takes us from one plane to the next. So we've come together, sort of gathered as individual organisations with our concerns, but when we go, let's put ourselves on another plane that we're going to work stronger and harder together. And so I'll go through the tohi, but as I do, I'll stop and go, haumia huia, and I want everyone to go taia ki. So haumia huia, taia ki. Katohi atu koe ki te tohi nuku ki te tohiranga. Kia hoi aia koe ki te pūtiki whara, kia tia aia koe ki te manirirangi, te rau o tītapa kia haere I runga rā, haumia huia, taia ki. I ranga hawa koe no tepo iriri no tepo tango tango. Raka tia koe te kukukoti ki te rau o te taro te hui e tita mā haumi e hui e tai. Whākine ta manga kupu o te riringa kupu o ta whiti he mea kā maumai. Ka kapiti runga e, ka kapiti raro e, he poka nganuku, he poka ngarangi pauhi ko pararama. Ti aho i roto marama i roto tēnei te pau. Te pau toko manua te pau e nei kōrero. Hu i te ora, hu i te marama. Whano, whano, haramai te ao. Haumi e, hui e! Tai ki e! Kia ora koutou.